Listen carefully. This isn't just another channel. This is a weapon. Every video here is built to slap the weakness out of you and inject raw power into your mind. If you came for comfort, leave. But if you came for the truth, the kind that burns, the kind that breaks illusions, the kind that flips your mindset into steel, then hit that subscribe button right now. Don't just watch, commit. Join the ones who refuse to stay average. Legends move in silence, but they start here. Subscribe and prove you're not like the rest. Well, look at you, sitting alone, scared of the silence, scared of the emptiness, scared of your own damn shadow. You call it loneliness. I call it training. You call it weakness. I call it the forge. Because here's the truth. No one becomes a legend surrounded by applause. Legends are built in isolation. You think Andrew Tate became Tate because the world hugged him. No, he sat in a cell with nothing but his own mind and came out untouchable. You think David Goggins ran into comfort? No. He ran into the night alone with voices in his head telling him to quit, and he crushed them all. You think Conor McGregor built his empire in crowds? No. He was alone in gyms when no one gave a damn. Solitude is where killers are made. And weakness? That's what crowds are for. Society has one great lie: don't be alone. They tell you, find friends, find love, stay connected, stay liked. Why? Because a man who stands alone can't be controlled. They hate the man who doesn't need their approval. They fear the man who doesn't need their comfort. And they despise the man who doesn't need their company. You see, the herd survives by clinging to each other, but the lone wolf survives because he doesn't need anyone. And when he returns to the pack, he isn't one of them. He's above them. That's the art of being alone, turning solitude into superiority. Most people can't stand silence. That's why they drown themselves in music, distractions, endless scrolling. They're terrified of hearing their own thoughts. But silence? Silence is where you meet yourself. And most people are too weak to face themselves. Goggins says it best: no one's coming to save you. And he's right. When you're alone long enough, you realize you are the savior, you are the killer, you are the goddamn solution. The crowd hides from this truth. Legends embrace it. You think strength is lifting weights? Strength is eating dinner alone and not caring who's watching. Strength is training in silence when no one claps. Strength is going weeks without approval and still walking like you own the world. The weak chase company to escape themselves. The strong build company within themselves. And when you master that, you stop being needy, you stop begging, you stop chasing, because you don't need them. They need you. That's the aura. That's the presence. That's what Tate means when he says, my unmatched perspicacity, blah, blah, blah. The point is, the reason he feels untouchable is because he doesn't need anyone to touch him in the first place. People flex cars, people flex money, people flex fake smiles. But solitude? That's the highest flex, because anyone can buy noise, but only a king can sit in silence and not go insane. Joker style? Oh, you don't like me? You don't call me? You don't invite me? Ha! Good. Perfect. Stay away. The fewer people around me, the less weakness in my circle. That's not loneliness. That's luxury. You want to know why most men never rise? Because they're addicted to crowds. They can't train unless someone's watching. They can't move unless someone approves. They can't think unless someone tells them what to think. Crowds make you soft. Solitude makes you steel. That's why Jordan Peterson says, responsibility is what gives life meaning. And responsibility is carried alone. That's why Goggins says, accountability mirror, because the mirror reflects only you. Here's the twist: what you call loneliness, I call a weapon. Because in solitude, you can grind in silence. In solitude, you can build without eyes watching. In solitude, you sharpen your mind, your body, your soul. The Joker doesn't need a crowd to validate him. His chaos is self-fueled. Tate doesn't need mainstream approval. His empire thrives regardless. McGregor doesn't need fans in the gym. His fists are enough. When you master being alone, you master everything. Because they can take your money, your friends, your fame, but they can't take your solitude. Let's be honest. They'll call you arrogant. They'll call you cold. They'll call you antisocial. Why? Because they can't control you anymore. When you don't need their presence, they lose their leverage. A man who can't be bribed by company, who can't be broken by isolation, who can't be lured by applause, that man is untouchable. That man is dangerous. That man has aura. Here's the real alpha secret: alone, untouchable. No toxic lover can manipulate you. No fake friend can drain you. No crowd can mislead you, because your foundation is solitude. Legends are forged in isolation. Warriors train in silence. Killers build when no one's looking. And when they return, the world isn't ready. So remember this. The next time you sit in silence and feel weak, laugh. Joker laugh, because the silence is your weapon. The solitude is your edge. Crowds are addicted to noise. Legends are addicted to power. And power comes from mastering aloneness. Never fear being alone. Fear needing people. Fear being addicted to company. Fear being soft without applause. Because the art of being alone, that's the art of being free. And freedom? Freedom is the loudest flex of them all. Look at them, all of them, herd animals, obsessing over likes, begging for approval, desperate to be included in the flock. They tell themselves they're strong, but the second you pull them out of the group and leave them standing alone, they break, they panic, they crumble. Because society doesn't want strong men. Society doesn't want lone wolves. Society wants sheep. Sheep are predictable. Sheep are controllable. Sheep obey without asking questions. But the lone wolf terrifies them. You want to know why? Because the lone wolf doesn't need anyone. Because the lone wolf doesn't beg to sit at their little table. Because the lone wolf can burn the table and still eat. And when you don't need people, you can't be bought. You can't be blackmailed. You can't be controlled. That's why they fear you. Take Andrew Tate, locked in a cell, alone. Society thought it had broken him. But what happened? His aura only grew. The man alone, caged, became more dangerous than the entire mob screaming outside, because he didn't need their approval. He didn't need their validation. He didn't need the world. Take Conor McGregor. They booed him, mocked him, said he was finished, and yet the man walked alone into the arena and carried the energy of 10,000 men. He didn't ask for applause. He took it. He owned it. He thrived when no one believed. Take David Goggins, running for hours, days in silence, alone with the pain, alone with the suffering. Most men would collapse. He laughs at it. He became something the crowd could never understand, untouchable, because he found strength in solitude. Society feeds you lies. You need friends. You need love. You need community. What they mean is, you need us to control you. You need us to approve of you. You need us to validate your existence. Bullshit. The Joker laughs at that. He knows the truth. He knows the mob only respects chaos, only respects unpredictability. And nothing is more unpredictable than a man who stands alone. Look around you. People can't sit in silence for 5 minutes without reaching for a screen. They can't go a day without posting for approval. They can't breathe without someone telling them, good job. They're addicts. Addicts of attention, addicts of validation, addicts of the herd. But you are different. You are building in silence. You are embracing solitude. You are teaching yourself to live without the noise. And when you return to the world, you'll be the one they whisper about. Here's the truth. When you're alone, you hear yourself. When you're alone, you meet the real you, not the mask you wear for the crowd. And the crowd hates that. Because once you know yourself, you don't need them anymore. They'll call you cold. They'll call you arrogant. They'll call you antisocial. But deep down, they're terrified. Because your independence exposes their weakness. Your solitude highlights their dependency. Your aura makes their approval worthless. Jordan Peterson said it best. A man who cannot stand alone is not a man at all. The world doesn't respect beggars. The world doesn't respect neediness. The world bows only to the man who could walk away from everything and still be whole. And that's the essence of the lone wolf. Not begging, not apologizing, not explaining, just standing alone and laughing while the crowd trembles. Let me tell you what society fears most: silence. Not just any silence, but your silence. The silence of a man who doesn't justify himself. The silence of a man who doesn't defend himself. The silence of a man who knows his worth without needing them to confirm it. That silence is louder than any speech. That silence is heavier than any insult. That silence is untouchable. Why do they mock the lone wolf? Why do they shame you for being alone? Because they're projecting their weakness. They can't survive without the herd, so they try to convince you that you can't either. Misery loves company, dependency loves chains, and weakness hates freedom. But freedom is exactly what solitude gives you. Elon Musk mocked, doubted, laughed at, spent years alone with his obsessions. While the herd was partying, he was building rockets. While the sheep were comfortable, he was risking everything. And now, the crowd can't stop watching him. The lone wolf became the shepherd. Dan Pena, the 50 billion man, preaches it brutally. You don't need friends. You don't need comfort. You need results. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't defend it. He doesn't need to. His life proves it. That's the pattern. Legends stand alone, and society hates it. So let me spell it out for you. Society will call you crazy. They will call you dangerous. They will call you insane. Good, because they called every lone wolf insane before he built his empire. They want you to feel guilty for being alone. Don't. They want you to chase their approval. Don't. They want you to explain yourself. Don't. The Joker never explains. He laughs, he mocks, he lets the crowd choke on their own confusion. And that's what you must become. The man who doesn't need the mob. The man who doesn't play their game. The man who stands alone and smiles while they tremble. Remember this, society fears the lone wolf because he cannot be controlled. And once you embrace solitude, once you love your own company, once you build without them, you'll realize their fear is your power. You don't need their stage. You don't need their applause. You don't need their approval. You are the stage. You are the show. You are the power they'll never touch. And that is why the lone wolf always wins. Well, you hate silence, don't you? It makes you squirm. It makes you uncomfortable. You run from it, drown it out with music, conversation, scrolling, nonsense, because silence has teeth. Silence shows you what you really are, and that's why you fear it. But me, I love silence. I worship it. It's where I hear the only voice that matters, mine. And until you learn to sit with yourself in absolute silence, you'll always be a puppet, a distraction addict, a nobody screaming into the void hoping someone claps. Look around you. Everyone's plugged in, shouting opinions, filling the air with words that don't mean shit. They can't stand to be alone with their own thoughts for 10 minutes. They'd rather drown in noise than listen to their own weakness. And you've been one of them, afraid of what your own mind will say when the crowd disappears. That's why you chase people. That's why you beg for validation. That's why you panic when nobody texts back. But here's the truth. If you can't survive silence, you'll never survive power. Silence hurts because it's a mirror. It throws every failure, every mistake, every weakness right in your face. It reminds you of the shit you've been running from, the betrayals, the wasted time, the nights you cried, and the mornings you lied to yourself. You want to know why you avoid silence? Because it's honest. And honesty is brutal. But brutal honesty is the only thing that forges killers. I laugh at the silence because I know it's my weapon. While they're running from their demons, I'm sitting with mine, drinking with them, learning their names. I don't hide. I don't beg for noise to save me. I embrace the chaos inside my own skull. And when you can do that, when you can sit alone in the dark without reaching for distraction, you'll become untouchable. Because now, the silence is yours. It bends to you. It strengthens you. It doesn't scare you anymore. It scares them. Legends are built in the quiet, when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when no one even cares you exist. That's where you sharpen yourself. That's where the discipline forms. That's where the obsession grows. Not in the spotlight, not in the noise, not in the comfort of a crowd, but in the fucking silence. And if you can't handle that silence, you'll break the second life stops applauding you. Silence will show you if you're weak, if you're addicted to approval, if you're chained to people's opinions. It will expose whether you're a man of independence or just a loud coward begging for attention. That's why the masses drown themselves in constant distraction. Because silence whispers the truth. You're not who you say you are. And instead of facing it, they run. But not you. Not anymore. You think greatness comes from noise? You think the crowd builds legends? No. The crowd destroys them. The crowd distracts them. The crowd eats them alive. Greatness comes from silence. From long nights where nobody gives a fuck about your work. From early mornings where you move like a ghost while everyone else is asleep. From the hours you spend alone building a world they can't even imagine. Silence is the breeding ground of killers. Noise is the graveyard of weak men. Because silence is control. Control of your mind. Control of your emotions, control of your time. When you master silence, you master yourself. And once you master yourself, no one else can master you. The man who can sit alone without needing anyone is feared, because he doesn't play by the same rules. He doesn't need approval. He doesn't need company. He doesn't need noise. He only needs himself, and that terrifies the world. When you first step into silence, it feels like death. It feels like suffocation. Your skin crawls, your mind races. You want to escape. But if you stay, if you hold the line, something changes. You stop fearing it. You start using it. You start hearing yourself clearly, your real voice, not the one the world programmed into you. And that voice, that's the one that will guide you to power. That's the one that will lead you out of weakness. That's the one that laughs in the face of noise and chaos. The silence you fear is the silence you need. It will show you who you are. It will expose your weakness. It will force you to build strength. So sit with it. Let it hurt. Let it burn. Let it strip away everything fake inside you. Because once you own the silence, nothing else can own you. Silence is not empty. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the loudest fucking weapon you'll ever hold. The crowd runs from it. The weak drown in it. The broken hide from it. But you learn to wield it. You laugh at it. You thrive in it. And when you master silence, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, you become unstoppable. They tell you loneliness kills. They tell you being alone is weakness. They tell you that if nobody's there to clap for you, you don't matter. Ha! Pathetic. Do you know what actually kills people? Needing others so badly that you forget who the hell you are when the room goes empty. Dependency is the poison. Desperation is the disease. When you love your own company, you become untouchable. You sit in silence and feel nothing but power. You walk alone and look like you own the streets. You eat alone and it tastes like victory. But the weak crumble in the quiet. They drown in their thoughts. They beg for noise, for company, for someone to hold their fragile little ego together. That's why society trains you to need people. Because a man who stands tall alone can't be broken. You think the strong are strong because of the crowd? No, the crowd only gathers because the man proved he didn't need it. Respect doesn't go to the desperate. Respect goes to the ones who don't ask. You've been fooled. You've been tricked into thinking love, approval, validation. That's survival. It's not. Survival is sitting in the dark, hearing your own thoughts, and not running from them. Survival is not grabbing your phone every 2 seconds to distract yourself from emptiness. Survival is silence, raw, uncut silence. The Joker laughs because he knows the game. He knows everyone around him is terrified of being left out. They're begging to belong, begging to be invited, begging to matter. And he doesn't beg. He creates his own world. He doesn't care if you join. That's why he scares you. That's why alphas scare you. Because they don't bend to loneliness, they bend it to their will. Here's the brutal truth. If you don't learn to love your own company, you'll always be a slave to others. You'll beg lovers who don't respect you to stay. You'll tolerate fake friends who drain you. You'll laugh at jokes you don't find funny just to fit in. You'll betray yourself because you're terrified of sitting alone in your room. That isn't living. That's crawling. When you master solitude, the tables flip. Suddenly, you don't need anyone, and that's when everyone wants you. Your ex wonders why you didn't beg. Your so-called friends panic when you stop calling. Your enemies can't figure out why you're calm. You're calm because you've already fought the war within and won. Think about it. Who's more dangerous, the man who needs a crowd or the man who thrives in silence? The crowd gives you claps, but silence gives you clarity. The crowd gives you distraction, but silence gives you strength. The crowd can vanish in an instant, but silence is yours forever. The ones who fear being alone will sell their soul to avoid it. They'll stay in toxic relationships. They'll cling to groups that destroy them. They'll chase validation like a drug. They think connection is saving them, but really it's killing them slowly. One compromise at a time, one fake laugh at a time, one betrayal of self at a time. But when you sit alone and love it, you kill neediness. You kill desperation. You kill the weakness that makes you a target. You stop caring about who likes you. You stop caring about who leaves. You stop caring about who doesn't clap. You stop caring about who talks shit when you're not around. You stop caring because you realized you never needed them in the first place. That's why some men rise while the rest rot. That's why a Tate can sit in a cell and laugh. That's why a Goggins can run for hours alone, talking only to his own demons. That's why McGregor can disappear, get mocked, then return like a storm. They mastered being alone. They found power in solitude. And once you find it, nothing, no exile, no breakup, no betrayal, can break you again. You don't need a hand to hold. You don't need applause. You don't need the room. You are the room. You are the show. You are the noise. And when you learn that, you walk differently. People sense it. They sense the man who doesn't beg. They sense the man who doesn't chase. They sense the man who's just fine walking away. And that aura, that silence, that indifference, it's deadly. The world hates it because it can't control you anymore. They'll call you cold. They'll call you antisocial. They'll call you arrogant. But what they really mean is, we can't manipulate you anymore. And once you hear that translation, you laugh, because finally you're free. The art of being alone isn't about isolation. It's about domination. It's about building in silence until you don't need to explain yourself to anyone. It's about sitting in emptiness and realizing you're not empty at all. You're full of power, clarity, and unshakable will. So love your own company, or die needing theirs. Those are your only choices. Crawl with the crowd or walk alone like a king. Beg for belonging or build a life so strong, people beg to belong to you. Fear the silence or let it sharpen you until you become untouchable. The Joker doesn't need the crowd. He laughs at the crowd. He laughs at their need to belong, to be liked, to be accepted. He laughs because he already mastered the one thing they can't, solitude. And that's the real punchline. You want to scare people? You want to dominate? You want an aura that makes others shake? Then stop being afraid of the quiet. Stop defending yourself. Stop begging for attention. Sit in the silence. Own it. Love it. Because once you do, you'll never chase again. You'll never beg again. You'll never be controlled again. The art of being alone is the art of freedom. The art of being alone is the art of strength. The art of being alone is the art of finally becoming the kind of man who doesn't need the world, because the world now needs him. Love your own company, or die needing theirs. Well, look at you. Scared of silence, addicted to noise, afraid of being left alone with yourself because deep down you know what you'll find. You'll find weakness, you'll find fear, you'll find the truth you've been running from all your life, and that's why solitude terrifies you. But let me tell you something, solitude is not punishment. Solitude is the ultimate flex, the highest form of strength, the real power move. You think strength is walking into a crowded room and being adored. Wrong. Strength is walking out of the room and not giving a fuck who noticed. Anyone can play for applause. Anyone can fake it for the crowd. But being alone? That's where only the chosen survive. That's where the monsters are built. When you're alone, nobody's clapping for you. Nobody's calling your name. Nobody's validating your existence. And here's the trick. If you can thrive in that emptiness, if you can stand tall when the world is gone quiet, then you got something most people will never have. Control, self-respect, an aura they can't touch. Society taught you to be addicted to people. Friends, lovers, family, social media, the herd. Always connected, always distracted, always dependent. They told you being alone means you're a loser. They told you it means you're unwanted. They told you it means you're weak. And you bought that lie. You swallowed it whole. But look at society. Miserable, fragile, desperate. People can't even sit in silence for 5 minutes without grabbing their phone. That's not power. That's slavery. The truth? Alone is where killers are made. Alone is where you hear yourself without the static. Alone is where the discipline is built, the vision is sharpened, the willpower is carved into steel. Do you want to know why people drown themselves in crowds? Because the crowd protects them from facing themselves. The noise hides the voice in their head that tells them the truth. They're cowards. They're weak. They're not who they pretend to be. You think it's painful to be alone? Good. Pain is proof you're still alive. Pain is the fire that burns away the fake parts of you. Sit in it long enough and you'll stop needing them. You'll stop begging for company. You'll stop seeking validation. That's when you become dangerous. When you stop chasing and instead you start attracting. Because people can smell it. They can feel it. The one who doesn't need anyone becomes the one everyone wants to be near. But here's the punchline. When you're finally good at being alone, you don't even care if they come or not. That's the flex, that's the aura, that's the power. The world runs on dependency. That's why they push you to network, to fit in, to stay connected. Because an independent man is a threat. A man who's at peace with himself is uncontrollable. You can't bribe him with attention. You can't blackmail him with loneliness. You can't use his fear against him because he doesn't have that fear anymore. Think of every so-called legend you've admired. The sleepless nights, the obsessive grind, the hours alone. They weren't built in crowds. They weren't built in comfort. They weren't built in applause. They were built in silence, built in rejection, built in solitude. The crowd only shows up when the work is done. The crowd claps for the result, never for the process. So why the fuck you need the crowd now? Why do you crave their validation? They'll show up when it's convenient for them. Until then, it's just you. The Joker didn't need anyone. That's what scared them most. His power wasn't in numbers, it was in unpredictability. He didn't play their game, he created his own, and he laughed while everyone tried to figure him out. You know what's scarier than a man with an army? A man who doesn't need one. Alone, you sharpen your edges. Alone, you figure out what you stand for. Alone, you become immune to the distractions that destroy everyone else. When you're alone long enough, you stop waiting for people to save you. You stop hoping someone will fix you. You realize no one's coming. And then something clicks. You stand up, you face the mirror, and you say, it's just me, and me is enough. Weak men die in loneliness. Strong men are born from it. The weak crumble because their identity is glued to others. They need likes, texts, calls, parties, fake friends, fake love. Take that away, and they're nothing. But the strong learn to build in silence. They learn to thrive without applause. They learn to create without witnesses. They become unshakable. You want freedom? Learn to enjoy your own company. You want peace? Stop begging for theirs. You want power? Make solitude your weapon. Because the man who can stand alone can stand anywhere. The man who loves his own company is impossible to manipulate. The man who thrives in silence doesn't fear rejection, doesn't fear abandonment, doesn't fear being forgotten because he doesn't need them in the first place. And let me tell you something else. Once you master solitude, they'll try to drag you back. They'll call you cold. They'll call you antisocial. They'll call you arrogant. But what they really mean is they can't control you anymore. You've escaped the leash. You've escaped the herd. And the herd hates that. So laugh, smile, sit alone at your table, walk alone down your path. Let them whisper, let them wonder, let them project their fears onto you. None of it matters, because the art of being alone is the art of being free. And nothing, absolutely nothing, is more terrifying than a man who doesn't need the world. You think you're strong because you're surrounded? You think your worth rises when you sit in groups, chatter in circles, hide behind numbers. Let me tell you the ugly truth: crowds make you weak. They strip the spine out of men. They give cowards a mask. They let you pretend you're not fragile, not lost, not hollow. Crowds are the comfort blanket of the spineless. And you're addicted to it. Look at the way people cling to each other. They'll do anything to avoid silence. They'll fill every second with noise, gossip, validation, pretending it's connection. But what it really is, escape. Escape from themselves. Escape from the emptiness they don't want to face. Because when you're alone, there are no distractions. There's just you. And most of you can't stand yourself long enough to last a single night without company. That's not strength. That's addiction. You want to know why legends are rare? Because legends are built in solitude. They don't need a crowd to feel alive. They don't need applause to confirm their worth. They don't need hands clapping in approval to keep moving. They move anyway. They fight anyway. They build anyway. And by the time the crowd even notices, it's too late. The work is done. The kingdom is already built. But you can't even take a breath without checking if someone saw it. You post, you share, you broadcast. Look at me, please see me. Pathetic. That's not dominance. That's desperation. The Joker doesn't beg the crowd. He laughs at it. Because the crowd is predictable. It's weak, it's fragile, and fragility is contagious. Spend enough time in the herd and you become the herd. You think like them. You act like them. You die like them. Being surrounded feels safe, doesn't it? But that safety costs you your edge. It costs you your sharpness. You stop thinking for yourself. You stop standing for yourself. You stop questioning. Because why would you? The group is already doing the thinking. The group is already handing you ready-made beliefs, ready-made excuses, ready-made chains. All you have to do is follow. All you have to do is obey. All you have to do is shut up and fit in. Congratulations, you're no longer a person. You're a shadow in the crowd. The strongest men in history, they walked alone. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. Crowds never created greatness. Crowds created comfort. And comfort is poison. Comfort is the drug that makes men soft, slow, weak. Comfort is the cage they never escape from. Do you really think the man who built empires did it with a committee of whiners whispering in his ear? No, he did it in silence, in isolation, in pain, alone. And here's the trick. Crowds will mock you for being alone. They'll laugh. They'll say you're antisocial, broken, cold. Good, let them. Their laughter is proof that you're free. They need each other to survive. You don't. That's the difference. That's the gap between predator and prey. The predator thrives in silence. The prey panics in solitude. The predator builds when no one's watching. The prey needs eyes to feel real. Every second you waste in a crowd is a second you could have been sharpening your edge. You could have been training, building, evolving. Instead, you're gossiping. You're seeking validation. You're drowning in noise. And when the silence finally comes, you're empty, you're soft, you're nothing. You want a test of strength? Sit in a room alone. No phone, no music, no distraction. Just you and your thoughts. Most of you will break in minutes. You'll claw at anything for stimulation. That's how fragile you've become. You call it boredom. I call it weakness. The man who can master solitude masters the world. Because he doesn't run from silence, he owns it. They say iron sharpens iron. Wrong. Iron sharpens itself against resistance. And the greatest resistance is solitude. It's facing yourself with no audience. It's confronting your failures with no comfort. It's sitting in the dark and admitting who you are. That's where sharpness is forged. That's where killers are made. The crowd dilutes you. Solitude concentrates you. The crowd makes you forget yourself. Solitude forces you to face yourself. The crowd weakens your spirit. Solitude sets it on fire. Which one sounds stronger? Which one sounds legendary? Do you know why silence is terrifying? Because silence tells the truth. In a crowd, you can fake it. You can laugh. You can nod. You can play along. Alone, there's nowhere to hide. Alone, the truth comes out. Alone, you can't lie to yourself anymore. And that's why most people run from it. They'd rather drown in the noise of the herd than face the truth of their own weakness. But you're not like them, or at least you don't want to be. That's why you're here. That's why you're still reading. Because deep down, you know the crowd is killing you. You know the noise is softening you. You know the constant need for people is stripping away your strength. You know that if you don't learn to love solitude, you'll die needing them. And men who need others are never free. So learn this lesson now. The crowd will never save you. They can't. They're too busy trying to save themselves. The crowd will never build you. They'll only drain you. The crowd will never make you strong. They'll only make you forget how weak you really are. Stop running with them. Stop hiding in them. Stop letting their fear infect your blood. Walk away. Sit in silence. Face yourself. Feel the discomfort. Let it burn. And when you rise from it, you'll be something they'll never understand. Harder, colder, sharper, alone, but free. Because crowds make you soft, and solitude makes you a weapon. They told you loneliness would break you. They told you silence would eat you alive. They warned you that if you stood alone, you'd wither. They lied. Loneliness didn't destroy you. It armed you. It sharpened you. It gave you something the crowd will never understand: control. Most people run from themselves. That's why they drown in noise. That's why they scroll, drink, gossip, binge, distract. Anything to avoid being left alone with their own reflection. You didn't run. You stayed. You faced the voices in your head. And when the storm ended, you realized something terrifying. The loneliness didn't kill you. It gave you clarity. Alone is where you stop lying to yourself. Alone is where excuses died. Alone is where the mask fell off. And in that silence, you saw the truth. No one wants to admit you don't need them. You never did. The world built an illusion that strength comes from numbers, from validation, from belonging. But what happens when the numbers turn on you? What happens when the validation disappears? What happens when belonging is stripped away? That's when most men collapse. But you grew fangs. Loneliness is not emptiness, it's ammunition. Every minute alone is a chance to sharpen discipline, to build without witnesses, to suffer without applause. You've learned that when no one is watching, that's when the real work gets done. You don't need an audience. You don't need a pat on the back. You grind in the dark until the dark bends to you. That's why they fear people who can be alone. Because you become unpredictable. You stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop attaching your worth to their acceptance. The herd survives by clinging to each other. The predator survives by clinging to nothing. You've walked through days without calls, nights without comfort, mornings without company. And you didn't collapse. You got sharper. You got calmer. You got hungrier. Alone time taught you the most important skill in life: detachment. You don't chase approval. You don't need applause. You don't fear silence. They mock loners because they're terrified of becoming one. They call you antisocial, cold, arrogant. They don't realize it's projection. They can't survive without the group. They can't function without the noise. They can't bear to be stuck with themselves because deep down, they know they're weak. But you stared into the void and laughed back. You've been where they're afraid to go. Loneliness gave you a second skin. The insults bounce off. The gossip doesn't stick. The betrayals don't shock you anymore. Because once you sat in silence long enough, you realize nothing external can match the battles inside. You already fought your own mind. You already faced your demons. What's left out there to scare you? Nothing. People confuse loneliness with punishment, but for you, it became training. You built muscles while they chased distractions. You built focus while they drowned in noise. You built calm while they spiraled in chaos. Loneliness is the boot camp that no one volunteers for, but the ones who survive it. They're unshakable, they're dangerous, they're free. Look at history. The strongest men always return to solitude. Fighters isolating before war. Thinkers disappearing before writing something immortal. Business killers vanishing before empires appeared. The pattern is clear. Greatness is born in silence, not in chatter. If you can't stand alone, you'll never stand tall. They want you to fear it because once you master it, you can't be controlled. How do you manipulate a man who doesn't need company? How do you guilt a man who doesn't crave approval? How do you threaten someone who doesn't fear being abandoned? You can't. And that's why you're dangerous now. Alone doesn't mean lonely. Alone means free. Alone means immune. Alone means you decide what enters your world and what gets cut off. That's why the crowd hates people like you. Because your existence exposes their weakness. You don't need them, but they need you. You've discovered the art of silence as a weapon. You don't beg for closure, you vanish. You don't explain yourself, you walk away. You don't defend, you let them drown in their own assumptions. And when they finally realize you're not coming back, that's when the panic sets in. That's when the predator becomes prey. Alone time gave you focus. You've used it to plan, to build, to harden. You learned that self-respect comes from not wasting energy on worthless connections. You stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even bandage you. You stopped giving your hours to those who never gave seconds back. Loneliness wasn't a curse. It was a filter, a brutal one. It burned away the leeches, the liars, the weak. What was left? You, stronger, cleaner, sharper. Now they see you differently. They sense the shift. They don't know why your presence feels heavier. They don't understand why you no longer chase or defend. They don't get why your silence feels louder than their noise. But you know. It's because you learned the secret in solitude. Power comes from not needing anyone to validate you. Most men fear the empty room. But you turn the empty room into a throne. They lock you away, you sharpen your mind. They exile you, you fortify your spirit. They abandon you, you evolve. That's why loneliness is not your weakness. It's your edge. It's your weapon. You can strip a man of money, of friends, of women, of status, but strip him of his own company and he collapses. That's why you're different. You don't just tolerate solitude. You thrive in it. You laugh in it. You sharpen your teeth in it. And when the world tries to drag you back into dependency, you smile because you know you've already won. Loneliness gave you something the crowd will never have, the ability to walk away from anything, anyone, at any time without hesitation. That's the ultimate freedom. That's the ultimate power. That's the weapon they can never take from you. So remember this. When the world gets quiet, when no one calls, when the room is empty, that's not punishment. That's your training ground. That's your fortress. That's your advantage. The herd fears it. You embrace it. The weak avoid it. You master it. And the ones who master loneliness, they don't just survive. They dominate. They hate what they cannot own. They despise what they cannot bend. The minute you stop moving the way they want, the panic sets in. Society is addicted to control. Families, governments, lovers, bosses, friends, they all want a version of you they can use. And the moment you step out of that mold, you become a threat. You ever notice how they cheer for you as long as you're convenient? As long as you play their little game, they clap. The second you start thinking for yourself, the applause turns into whispers. Suddenly, you're changed. Suddenly, you're cold. Suddenly, you're different. Damn right you are. Different is the point. Different is freedom. Most people are terrified of someone who can't be bought. You refuse to play the validation circus, and they don't know what to do. They need you insecure, desperate for a pat on the back. That's where their control lives, in your hunger for approval. Cut that hunger, and you cut their leash. Watch how fast they turn against you once you no longer need them. You want proof? Look at anyone who's broken away from the herd. They weren't celebrated. they were crucified. Independent men are mocked before they're admired. Lone wolves are hunted before they're respected. It's always the same pattern. First they laugh, then they resist, then they fear, and finally, they obey. Control is their drug, and you are their fix. They need your reaction, your agreement, your constant dance in their little theater. The second you stop performing, their stage goes dark. That silence kills them more than any insult could. People fear what they can't predict, and when you stop caring, you become unpredictable. That unpredictability is power. Don't think this is just about enemies. Even the closest people will try to mold you. They'll guilt you with words like loyalty and love. But loyalty doesn't mean slavery, and love doesn't mean chains. The Joker knew it. People don't want partners, they want puppets. Cut the strings, and watch the hands that held them start to shake. Look around. The world worships control. Schools don't teach you how to think, they teach you how to obey. Jobs don't reward you for creativity, they reward you for compliance. Relationships don't often celebrate your independence, they celebrate your sacrifice. From birth, you're trained to be manageable. So when you break the script, they panic. And here's the fun part. You don't even need to fight them. You just need to stop playing. They can't control silence. They can't manipulate indifference. They can't own someone who doesn't care about being owned. Try it once. Someone provokes you. Don't explain, don't defend, don't bite. Just stare, just laugh, just walk. Watch how the power flips in that instant. They'll call you arrogant. They'll call you heartless. They'll call you dangerous. And every one of those names means the same thing. They can't control you anymore. Wear those labels like armor. They're not insults, they're confirmations. Proof that you've broken their system. Control isn't about chains, it's about psychology. If they can convince you to need them, you're already trapped. If they can convince you to explain yourself, you're already smaller. If they can convince you to stay silent out of fear, you're already their pet. But when your silence comes from strength, when your lack of defense comes from refusal, they've lost completely. You want to see fear? Tell people no and mean it. Say it with nothing behind it. No defense, no excuse, no apology. Just no. That two-letter word is the most terrifying weapon in your arsenal, because no means independence. No means control. No means you stop dancing. And once you've stopped dancing, the circus collapses. People think fear comes from power. Wrong. Fear comes from freedom. The freest man alive is the most terrifying creature in the room. Not the richest, not the strongest, not the loudest, the freest. Because he cannot be bribed, guilted, shamed, or controlled. He lives on his own terms, and that makes him immortal in a world full of slaves. Think of the Joker's grin. That sick, mocking laugh in the face of chaos. Why is it terrifying? Because you can't control someone who laughs at destruction. He has no leash. He has no fear. That's why he wins even when he loses. That's why people follow him even when he burns. His power isn't strength, it's detachment. His freedom makes everyone else look like prisoners. When you become untouchable, people will project their fear onto you. They'll say you're unstable, untrustworthy, dangerous. Let them. That's the echo of their broken system trying to explain why it can't cage you anymore. Don't waste time defending against it. Don't waste time proving them wrong. Their words are weapons made of plastic. You only bleed if you believe they're sharp. There's a reason every legend has been called crazy. Every independent man has been labeled a threat. Because control only works when everyone believes in the same rules. Break the rules and you expose the lie. The world doesn't hate lone wolves because they're wrong. It hates them because they show everyone else what's possible. So here's your wake-up call. Stop being predictable. Stop being manageable. Stop letting people map your emotions like a GPS. Detach. Confuse them. Refuse them. Laugh in their face when they expect you to cry. Walk away when they expect you to argue. That unpredictability will terrify them more than rage ever could. The art of being alone is also the art of being uncontrollable. Because when you no longer fear silence, you no longer fear exile. When you no longer fear exile, you no longer fear rejection. And when you no longer fear rejection, nobody has power over you. That's the end game. That's the secret they never wanted you to learn. You don't need them. Not their approval, not their applause, not their chains dressed as compliments. They need you. They need your energy, your compliance, your fear. Take it back. Starve them. Watch how quickly the predators turn human again once the prey walks away. They fear what they can't control. Good. Be that fear. They call it loneliness. I call it freedom. They call it isolation. I call it untouchability. Because the moment you master being alone, you cut every string they once used to control you. Think about it. Every weakness they exploited came from your fear of solitude. You wanted company, so you tolerated fakes. You wanted love, so you accepted betrayal. You wanted validation, so you explained yourself to people who were never listening. And every time, they chipped away at you. Every time, they reminded you that you were dependent, that you couldn't stand without them. But when you finally stand alone, that dependency dies. Suddenly, no one can guilt you. No one can bribe you with their presence. No one can hold their absence over your head like a loaded gun. The moment you embrace solitude, you stop being their prisoner. Most people will never get there. They'll run from silence like it's a curse. They'll drown themselves in noise, in crowds, in distractions, in pointless relationships because they're terrified of being left with their own reflection. They're terrified of hearing the truth in their own head. And that's why they'll always be weak. That's why they'll always be controlled. But you learn to sit with the silence. You learn to hear your own thoughts, your own darkness, your own demons. And instead of running, you laugh. You shake hands with the monster inside you. And suddenly, no one outside you can scare you again. That's the secret of being alone. It makes you immune. They can threaten to leave you, and you'll smirk. They can try to ignore you, and you'll enjoy the peace. They can strip you of everything but yourself, and you'll still win because you've learned to operate with nothing. When you've mastered solitude, you become bulletproof. Look at the greats, the ones who stood out, the ones who rattled the world. None of them belonged. They were isolated, mocked, misunderstood. They walked alone long before the world ever applauded. That's the price of power, separation. That's the cost of greatness, exile. Alone you train when others sleep. Alone you build when others beg. Alone you sharpen your mind into a blade no one sees coming. Alone you create the version of yourself that no crowd could ever give you permission to be. That's why solitude is feared. Because it's in the shadows that monsters are born. The herd will try to pull you back. They'll call you antisocial, arrogant, broken. They'll say you've lost touch. But they're not worried about you. They're worried about themselves. Because when you stop needing them, you show them what they really are, disposable. And no one likes being reminded of their own irrelevance. They need you dependent. They need you reactive. They need you afraid of the silence. Because as long as you're afraid of being alone, you'll keep running back to them. But when you've mastered solitude, you're not chasing anymore. You're not begging. You're not explaining. You're not folding. You're untouchable. Think about relationships. Most people stay because they fear being alone, not because they're truly connected. That's why they tolerate lies. That's why they endure disrespect. That's why they shrink themselves to fit. Because the thought of being alone terrifies them more than the reality of betrayal. But if you can embrace solitude, you'll never settle again. You'll never lower your standards just to avoid an empty room. You'll walk away without hesitation because you know you'll be fine without them. That kind of power scares people more than anything. And friendships, the same rule applies. The moment you stop fearing solitude, you stop tolerating fake loyalty. You stop babysitting dead weight. You stop giving access to people who drain you. You realize most of them weren't friends. They were just noise. And without them, you're sharper. Without them, you're cleaner. Without them, you're free. Alone doesn't mean lonely. Alone means you've taken the training wheels off. Alone means you're building a fortress inside your own skull. Alone means you're not addicted to the dopamine of company. You're addicted to progress, to focus, to the kind of self-respect that makes you radiate something the weak will never understand. That's why solitude builds aura. People sense it when you walk into the room. They can tell you don't need them. They can tell you're not desperate. They can tell you've been forged in silence. And suddenly, they treat you differently. They might laugh behind your back, but in person, they respect you. They fear you, because deep down, they know you built something they never had the courage to face, yourself. The Joker knew it. He didn't need the crowd. He didn't need applause. He didn't need acceptance. That's what made him terrifying, his freedom from society's leash. And once you taste that freedom, you'll never want to give it back. So, you want to be untouchable? Learn to be alone. Learn to eat alone, work alone, grind alone, and succeed alone. Learn to train without witnesses. Learn to celebrate without an audience. Learn to endure without a shoulder to cry on. Because the moment you can do that, you stop being a participant in their game. You become the wild card, the one who doesn't need the handouts, the one who doesn't flinch when abandoned, the one who laughs when threatened. When you've mastered solitude, people can't blackmail you with loneliness anymore. They can't weaponize rejection. They can't manipulate you with absence. They can't dangle love or approval in front of you like a carrot. You've already cut that rope. You've already built yourself in the silence. And once you've built yourself there, no one can touch you. They can talk, they can scheme, they can leave. None of it matters. You've already faced the worst, yourself. You've already survived the silence. You've already turned the emptiness into strength, and that's why you're untouchable. Being alone is not a punishment. It's the crucible. It's the arena. It's the lab where killers are engineered. And the ones who master it never go back to needing anyone again. So let them laugh. Let them misunderstand. Let them call you cold, distant, arrogant. They don't get it. They're not supposed to. That's the point. You stepped out of the herd. You've embraced the silence. You become untouchable. And when the world finally sees you, calm, dangerous, unbothered, they'll know what solitude truly created. Someone they can't break, someone they can't buy, someone they can't reach. Because the art of being alone is the art of being free. And once you're free, they can never chain you again. Well, 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 here it is. The finale. The part nobody wants to admit. The truth they all keep choking on. You've been lied to since birth. Lied to by schools, lied to by friends, lied to by lovers. They told you that being alone was failure. They told you that without someone beside you, you were incomplete. But look at the joke hidden in plain sight. The ones who said that can't spend a single night by themselves without falling apart. They can't survive silence. They can't live without noise. They're not whole. They're hostages. The art of being alone isn't about locking yourself in a room and sulking. It's about cutting the cord that society wrapped around your neck and finally breathing without asking permission. They tell you to seek belonging. Why? Because belonging keeps you tame. Belonging keeps you controllable. Belonging keeps you soft. Alone, you become unpredictable. Alone, you see clearly who you are without the fingerprints of other people smudging the glass. And that is the moment the world starts to fear you. People call it arrogance when you stop chasing company. They call it ego when you stop begging for love. They call it coldness when you stop answering pointless calls. But listen closely, it's not arrogance, it's survival. It's not ego, it's self-respect. And it's not coldness, it's liberation. The weak ones disguise their dependence as compassion. They'll say, we need connection, we need people. No, they need people. You don't. You've learned to live with yourself, and that's the most terrifying power a man can hold. Look at the way the world shakes when a man says nothing. Silence is deadly. Most people panic when they're alone in a quiet room. You smile. You hear thoughts that others bury. You see truths they drown with distractions. You don't need to escape from yourself anymore. You've built yourself into someone worth being alone with. That's the real joke. The ones who mock you for being alone are the ones who can't even stand themselves. They need crowds to hide their emptiness. You carry your solitude like a crown. And let's get this straight. Being alone isn't loneliness. Loneliness is begging for attention. Loneliness is swiping, scrolling, texting people who don't care. Loneliness is desperation. But solitude is weaponry. Solitude is sharpening your mind while they waste their hours in fake smiles. Solitude is stacking wins while they beg for validation. Solitude is control. You aren't starving without them. They're starving without you. When you master being alone, you stop falling for cheap traps. No fake friend can manipulate you. No lover can chain you. No group can absorb you. Why? Because you don't need them. You've killed need. You've starved dependency. You've replaced it with discipline. Alone, you train harder. Alone, you think deeper. Alone, you build stronger. That's the quiet terror of independence. Nobody can leash you anymore. The ones who can't handle solitude will call you names. They'll say you're antisocial, a loner, a freak. Laugh in their faces. They're not insulting you. They're confessing. They're confessing their addiction to being liked, to being approved of, to being surrounded by worthless chatter. You cut that addiction out of your system. You detox from people. And now you're high on clarity. Do you want to know the true face of power? It's not money. It's not muscles. It's not even fame. Power is waking up and knowing, I need no one. That's untouchable. That's the apex predator state. Because a man who needs nothing cannot be controlled, cannot be bribed, cannot be broken. When people realize you're fine without them, they panic. They try to pull you back. They try to bait you with guilt. They try to shame you for walking away. But every attempt exposes their dependence on you. You're the drug they can't quit. They need your attention, your validation, your presence. And when you cut them off, they start shaking like addicts. You're not the weak one. You never were. So let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them wonder what you're doing in silence. Because every hour they waste talking about you, you're building. You're stacking wins. You're carving yourself into someone who doesn't just survive without them. Someone who thrives without them. That's why legends walk alone. Not because they hate people, but because they understand. People are noise until they prove otherwise. The joke is this: they'll call you selfish, but it was them who drained you. They'll call you heartless, but it was them who betrayed you. They'll call you strange, but it was them who begged you to fit into their hollow world. And yet, after all of it, you're still standing, alone, calm, stronger than ever. You didn't just survive without them. You proved they were dead weight the entire time. You don't need them. You never did. But here's the cruel twist. They need you. They need your energy, your discipline, your stability, your presence. You were their anchor. You were their source. You were their safety net. And now that you've cut yourself loose, they're drowning. That's why solitude isn't just survival, it's dominance. You've turned being alone into an art. You've painted silence into strength. You've carved solitude into armor. And now you walk through the world untouchable. They can't label you. They can't cage you. They can't use you. Because the man who has mastered being alone has mastered everything. So next time someone asks, "Don't you get lonely?" Smile. Smile like the Joker. Smile like someone who knows the truth. Tell them the secret they can't handle. The art of being alone is the art of being free. And nothing is more terrifying than a man who doesn't need the world. Stop scrolling. Stop doubting. Stop waiting for someone to hand you permission. This is your fucking life, and nobody's coming to save you. You either rise now, or you stay a slave to excuses forever. Don't defend yourself. Don't beg. Don't explain. Build in silence. Walk away from weakness. Turn solitude into power. You want freedom? Earn it. You want respect? Take it. You want dominance? Become untouchable. The world doesn't care about your feelings. It only respects results. Stand up, lock in, and move like the monster they never saw coming. Legends are forged now. Your move